My wife said, "I'm leaving you for my ex." I replied, "I understand." Then I transferred all our assets to my name, changed the locks, and I just smiled, because she was about to find out I had already covered my tracks. I, 32 male, had been with Serafina, 29F, for 13 years. We had married 8 years prior in a small ceremony near Raleigh, North Carolina. I worked as a senior data architect for a small regional utility company. My income was a stable $135,000 annually. Serafina was an owner-operator of a boutique artisanal bakery downtown. She generally brought in about $72,000 a year. Our finances were jointly managed in a comprehensive joint trust. We lived in a renovated brick ranch house in a quiet Raleigh suburb. The environment was pleasant but somewhat stagnant for my career ambitions. Our lifestyle was comfortable and centered around our home and business. We occasionally dined at the Iron Table, an upscale American spot, for anniversaries. Most weekends involved Serafina working and me managing the household finances. Our social life was minimal, focused mostly on her network of bakery suppliers and local food scene people. My peers were mostly technical, and we preferred virtual connection over in-person gatherings. This stability had become a routine, a quiet rut, that I was beginning to question. A new career opportunity materialized from an executive recruiter I had worked with previously. It was a substantial offer to become the chief data officer for a major, decentralized microfinance corporation. The compensation package was exceptional. The base salary was $380,000. This included significant annual performance bonuses and immediate equity options. The location was Boise, Idaho. The move would represent a monumental shift in our careers and living situation. I calculated the total expected compensation was nearly $625,000 in the first year alone. I presented the offer to Serafina during a quiet Sunday evening. I detailed the financial impact and the prestige of the role. I explained this would secure our financial future completely. Serafina simply picked up a discarded menu and fanned herself slowly. She laughed slightly, a thin, dismissive sound that I knew too well. She explained that leaving her bakery for an Idaho tech job was beneath us. She said the entire proposition was a desperate fantasy, a ridiculous dream of ambition I should ignore. She told me to turn it down immediately. Update 1. I thanked the recruiter for his patience and asked for 1 week to consider the offer fully. I did not mention Serafina's reaction or her dismissive comments. I quietly began the internal process of acceptance without her knowledge. I secured the necessary professional references and passed the executive background checks. I was preparing to accept the position, regardless of her resistance. Serafina repeated her dismissive comments every few days. She would bring up the inconvenience of moving her bakery operations to the Pacific Northwest. She constantly spoke about the terrible weather and the cultural inferiority of Boise compared to Raleigh. She also mentioned that my technical role was merely managerial and not a true executive position. Her closest friends, Delilah and others from the local food scene, agreed with her. They emphasized how much the bakery contributed to the local community. They subtly reinforced the idea that my job was less important than hers. I started my private preparation immediately and methodically. I met with a specialist in trust law to discuss the details of our joint financial trust. I began research into the Boise real estate market, focusing on modern houses with strong solar infrastructure. I initiated contact with several local Boise banks to establish new, private accounts. I also started a small, personal document storage vault. This vault contained copies of all joint financial records, receipts, and our marriage certificate. I felt a growing sense of detachment, a quiet resolve forming beneath the surface. The preparation felt clean and necessary, like cleaning an infected wound. I focused on the quiet mechanics of separation. I found a 2-story contemporary house near the Boise foothills. The house featured extensive smart automation and an excellent view. I secured a pre-approval mortgage for the new property. I arranged for all funds in the joint investment accounts to be liquidated and held in a temporary, neutral account. The paperwork was complex but legally sound. I was simply protecting my assets from sudden emotional withdrawal or retaliatory actions. Update 2. One Tuesday evening after Serafina returned from a late shift, I announced my decision calmly. I had accepted the position as Chief Data Officer. The paperwork was finalized that day. The official start date was 5 weeks away. I explained that the opportunity was non-negotiable and life-changing. Serafina stared at me for a long moment, slowly putting down her keys. Her expression was a mixture of surprise and genuine anger. She asked me about the money. I replied that the offer was now formally signed. She demanded that I cancel the acceptance immediately. I responded that canceling was impossible. A serious confrontation began with measured dialogue. She accused me of being selfish and inconsiderate of her business. I countered that she had refused to even discuss the opportunity rationally. I reminded her of her initial mocking and disdain for my career aspirations. I explained that her contempt had been the deciding factor. She stood up quickly, raising her voice slightly. She stated this was her ultimatum. She said I could choose her or the job. She insisted I stay in Raleigh for her. I took a slow breath and looked directly at her. I replied that I chose the career and my self-respect. I explained that I had already covered my tracks financially, anticipating this moment. I told her I would be proceeding with the move as planned. The silence that followed was heavy but also liberating. She started to cry softly, insisting I was destroying our entire life together. She said that everything we had built was meaningless to me. I simply repeated that the decision was final and irreversible. I told her I would arrange for her fair share of the remaining joint assets. This moment felt less like a heartbreak and more like a logical conclusion to years of suppressed resentment. I knew the end had come and I felt only the quiet rush of freedom. Update 3. The fallout over the next several weeks was precisely what I had anticipated. Serafina entered a predictable cycle of anger, bargaining, and denial. In the first week, she was furiously angry, often slamming doors and refusing to speak to me. She moved out of our shared bedroom and slept on the sofa downstairs. She sent numerous texts to her friends, painting me as a ruthless betrayer. The second week saw the bargaining phase. She suddenly suggested we could try a long-distance relationship. She offered to open a second bakery location in Boise. She made promises to be more supportive and engaged in my career. I listened to her proposals quietly and analytically. I explained that the trust was already broken beyond repair. By the third and fourth weeks, she settled into denial and cold detachment. She acted as if the move were not happening. She focused entirely on her bakery and ignored my existence in the house. This was almost easier to deal with than the dramatic outbursts. I remained perfectly calm and emotionally detached throughout the process. I focused on the detailed logistics of the relocation. Moving day arrived on a cool Saturday morning in October. I had hired a professional logistics company to handle everything. I supervised the removal of my personal belongings, my office equipment, and the furniture I was taking. Serafina was conspicuously absent. She had left a note saying she was at the bakery and would deal with the house when I was gone. The note was cold and impersonal. I sold the shared Tesla Model 3 and deposited her half of the proceeds into a dedicated escrow account for her. The flight to Boise later that day felt like crossing a significant threshold. The first detailed view of the new city from the air was breathtaking. I saw the rugged Boise foothills covered in early snow. I felt a surge of professional energy. My new job was demanding, requiring immediate strategy development for large-scale data governance. My new contemporary house near the foothills was stunning. The smart automation and solar panels were fully operational. I bought a robust, reliable Volvo XC90 Recharge the next day. This new life felt earned and entirely my own. Update 4. I settled into the Chief Data Officer role quickly and efficiently. The work was challenging but fulfilling. I was managing a team of over 300 globally dispersed analysts and engineers. I was thriving in the fast-paced, high-stakes environment. My financial situation was improving dramatically. The $380,000 salary, combined with the stock options, meant I was quickly accumulating significant personal wealth. My social life also expanded naturally. I joined a hiking club that explored the foothills and met several professional peers. I frequently enjoyed dinners at Juniper Hearth, a great Pacific Northwest cuisine restaurant. I formed a strong professional bond with Kian, the chief technology officer. Kian was helpful and quickly became a reliable confidant. I had never felt this level of professional respect or personal freedom before. Just 6 months into the role, I achieved a major milestone. I successfully completed the integration of 5 disparate data systems following a series of regional acquisitions. The board recognized my performance with an immediate promotion to Director of Enterprise Systems. This came with a substantial 6-figure performance bonus. The total compensation package was now closer to $750,000 annually. Around this time, Serafina's network started reaching out curiously. I received vague messages from Delilah, her closest friend, on an old social media platform. Delilah asked if I was doing well and if the job was working out. Another friend inquired about the specifics of my new role. I responded to all of them with polite, reserved neutrality. I only confirmed that I was well and the role was challenging. I provided no specifics regarding the title, the salary, or my massive lifestyle upgrade. I maintained a clear boundary, refusing to engage in gossip or complaints about Serafina. I simply stated that the past was the past and I was focused on my future. I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that the true depth of my success remained hidden from her. I remembered her initial mocking laughter when I first presented the offer. That memory fueled my continued professionalism and detachment. Update 5. I made a deliberate decision to post my career success publicly 9 months after moving. I created a concise post on LinkedIn detailing my recent promotion to Director of Enterprise Systems. I used professional language, focusing on strategic achievements rather than monetary gains. I kept the tone purely business-focused and analytical. The post generated a significant number of positive comments and professional endorsements. Serafina learned the full truth about my title, salary, and status through one of her friends. Delilah saw the LinkedIn post and connected the dots, doing a little online research. The true salary figures and the prestige of the role were now undeniable. Serafina's initial ridicule of my managerial role was now exposed as completely unfounded. The contrast between her $72,000 bakery income and my $750,000 package was stark. Serafina immediately started sending me a barrage of messages. She began with short, simple questions about how I was managing. These quickly escalated into emotional paragraphs about her regrets and loneliness. She wrote that she had made a terrible mistake. She said she never truly meant her unkind words. She claimed that the bakery was failing without my management skills. I responded briefly to the first 2 messages with minimal, factual statements. I did not engage with the emotional content or the pleas for sympathy. My former friends began to reach out and admit they were misled. They explained that Serafina had portrayed me as a narcissistic workaholic who abandoned her. They apologized for taking her side without knowing the full details of the offer. They had believed her narrative entirely. I thanked them for their honesty but declined any invitations to reconnect. Even my own distant family, who had expressed concern about the sudden move, acknowledged my decision was correct. My brother, who is a financial consultant, called to congratulate me. He explained he had reviewed my new company's public filings. He confirmed that I had already covered my tracks financially, the very thing I had silently planned. He said my swift, quiet action had protected my future earnings perfectly. He respected my strategic detachment. Update 6. Serafina arrived in Boise unexpectedly just a few weeks after the LinkedIn post. She did not call ahead or announce her arrival. She simply showed up at my office reception demanding to see me. My executive assistant, trained to handle unexpected visitors, handled the situation professionally. She called me, asking how to proceed with the unexpected arrival. I asked her to direct Serafina to a nearby neutral coffee shop. I met her there 30 minutes later. She looked noticeably tired and slightly disheveled. She wore an expensive but crumpled dress. I maintained a professional distance, sitting across the table with my hands folded. She claimed that she had changed entirely. She said she understood what she had lost. She explained that she needed my stability now. I responded calmly, referring to her past actions and social media posts. I reminded her that her mocking comments were not just words but a rejection of my life's path. I mentioned the public posts where she had subtly ridiculed my move after I left. I explained that actions have lasting consequences. She insisted on returning to the house and trying to rebuild our lives together. She spoke about the history we shared. She offered to sell the bakery and move permanently to Boise. Her voice was slightly shaky, betraying her desperation. I replied that I was well established now. I stated there was no relationship left to save. I explained that I had legally finalized the divorce proceedings last month. She looked genuinely shocked, her eyes wide with sudden realization. She asked me why I had not told her about the divorce filing. I explained that she had been served papers by the process server a month ago in Raleigh. I told her that she had simply refused to acknowledge them. I calmly finished my coffee and stood up. I said goodbye quietly and walked away, leaving her sitting alone at the table. Update 7. The rejection triggered an immediate and predictable response. Serafina attempted both legal and online retaliation almost immediately. She hired a lawyer in Raleigh and accused me of financial malfeasance and emotional abandonment. She claimed I had stolen marital assets and was hiding money. I handed all correspondence directly to my corporate attorney, a specialist in executive affairs. My lawyer, Mr. Harding, managed the situation efficiently and without drama. He simply presented the fully documented transfer of the escrowed funds and the documented sale of the joint car. He showed the trust documents that Serafina had signed years ago. The documents allowed for the unilateral dissolution of the joint accounts upon notice of separation. Her legal claims were baseless and collapsed quickly. Simultaneously, she took her claims online, posting vague but critical statements about my character. She implied I was a heartless technocrat who left her destitute. This attempt at public shaming also backfired swiftly. Several former co-workers, whom I had treated well, exposed contradictions in her claims. One of the friends who had initially sided with her now posted a supportive comment about my professionalism. The online claims evaporated quickly when people realized she was lying. The contrast between her narrative and my quiet, professional life was too vast. The public record of my career success made her seem petty and desperate. She lost nearly all her remaining credibility with her social circle. Even the local food critics began to speak less favorably about her once popular bakery. I maintained total silence throughout this period. I let the truth and the documented facts speak for themselves. My focus remained on my work and my new life in Boise. I refused to let her drama affect my equilibrium. I saw the retaliation attempts not as personal attacks but as predictable environmental noise. I treated them as data points that confirmed my original decision to leave. Date 8. 1 year later, my life had settled into a rhythm of stability and increasing prosperity. I was comfortably settled in the Director of Enterprise Systems role. My stock options had vested, making me financially secure for life. The house in the foothills was completely paid off. My net worth had multiplied several times over since leaving Raleigh. I had also met a new partner, Leona, a talented architect who worked for a high-end design firm in Boise. Leona was rational, supportive, and fiercely ambitious in her own right. She appreciated my analytical nature and professional success. We shared a quiet, logical relationship built on mutual respect and shared goals. We enjoyed hiking the local trails and discussing architecture and data structures over dinner at the Summit Bistro. Serafina sent one final message of regret through an old, rarely used email address. The message was concise and lacked the previous emotional urgency. She wrote that she was closing the bakery and moving to live with her sister in New England. She admitted that she realized now that she was the one who was truly short-sighted. I waited 2 days before drafting a response. I kept the reply short and polite. I wrote that I wished her the very best. I added that I hoped she found happiness. I immediately blocked the email address after sending the reply. There was no joy in her failure, only the quiet closure of an old chapter. I focused on the present, ready to embrace the future with Leona. Update 9. 3 months after receiving Serafina's final message, I met her parents unexpectedly. I was on a business trip in North Carolina attending a major data security conference. I was having a quick, solitary lunch at a small cafe near the convention center. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Denton, were sitting in the next booth. They looked slightly older and more reserved than I remembered. They hesitated for a moment, then stood up and approached my table slowly. They asked if they could speak with me for a moment. I invited them to sit down. Mr. Denton spoke first, his voice quiet and heavy. He said they wanted to apologize directly. He admitted they had listened only to Serafina's side. He explained that they knew the entire truth now. Mrs. Denton added that they knew I had handled the finances fairly. She said they were ashamed of Serafina's behavior and the way she had treated me. They admitted their own mistake in blindly supporting their daughter's reckless actions. I listened to their apology without interrupting, accepting it calmly. I explained that I held no bitterness toward them. I told them that I understood family loyalty and the difficulty of seeing the truth. I offered a direct life lesson for their reflection. I explained that Serafina had not merely rejected a job offer. She had rejected the ambition, respect, and financial security I was offering us both. I told them her initial decision was an act of quiet, continuous betrayal. This was the moment I realized the truth of the hook, that the betrayal was always already present. I stated the entire episode taught me a valuable lesson. I explained that quiet competence always triumphs over loud, emotional drama. I said that I would never again allow someone to mock or undervalue my professional aspirations. I explained that I had already covered my tracks legally and emotionally before she made her final choice. This preparation allowed me to exit cleanly and with dignity. I wished them well and thanked them for their honesty. The conversation was conducted with quiet, logical closure and peace. I returned to my work, feeling a final, deep sense of resolution. The past was fully closed, replaced by a successful, peaceful life that I had built for myself. I had found freedom through foresight and calm execution.